Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
It's time for us to look at security issues that has transpired in the Nigeria landscape in the last 1 year. We have a special guest, a special one indeed, and we have the privilege of hosting Dennis Amachree, who is the principal partner at Zoomlens Security Solutions and the former DSS boss. He's joining us all the way from UK this morning. Glad to have you join us this morning. All right, let's start with you giving us a picture of the architectural landscape in Nigeria in the last 1 year. As a former DSS director, a security expert who has been in the Nigerian space for years, what would be your assessment of the security landscape in Nigeria, and what are the issues that have shaped the issue of security in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much for having me again. You see, the important aspect is where in the Constitution, where it is said that the security and safety of the citizens is a fundamental objective of government. So when this government came into power, you remember, many people were very, very worried, especially with the last administration. It was a situation where we have serious kidnapping cases, you know, and actually nothing was done about it. Not much was done about it. The security agencies were overstretching themselves and working so hard. But at the same time, you find out that the political will to ginger them on and get rid of this problem was not there. So the whole country was like under a siege, you know, a total siege where in the northeast, you have the problem with Boko Haram. In the northwest, bandits are there. The southeast, you have unknown gunmen, you know, who have been terrorizing people. And then, of course, in the south, we have serious piracy, which even affect the economy of Nigeria, because we find out that most of the oil that we are supposed that sustain the country are being stolen at a very huge cost per day. So we have all these things. We have ethnic problems, tribal problems, religious problems, all come into play. So the country looks like it's under siege. And of course, we need the focused leadership to get the country out of this.
All right, let's look at the spate of banditry, kidnapping, and other security challenges over the last 1 year. In your assessment, do you think there's been an improvement in curbing this insecurity?
Well, my own analysis will be that we've not done much, especially kidnapping. We've not done much because, yes, people are being kidnapped. And then, of course, they go to negotiate. People negotiate. And then, of course, they collect money and then they come back again. So the strategy to make sure that we eliminate kidnapping still exists because there is no national policy on kidnapping. You know, the national policy where we say that, remember the president came out to say that no more ransom. You know, because that is what gingers kidnapping. No more ransom, but ransoms are being paid. The ransoms are being paid. And then, of course, you find out that when they collect this ransom, they go and buy more arms, they go and give it to their sponsors. And then, of course, we've not been able to, as a country, have this national policy on kidnapping. Not any major prosecution on kidnapping, you know, because, okay, remember the famous case of Evans, you know. We keep it so much under the carpet that after a while, a lot of people will forget. And then, of course, we don't know the status of that, And we have the military in government. That's another thing. The police is supposed to be in charge of internal security, but we've invited the military, and the military is in almost all the states. If you look at Nigeria from outside, many people believe that either we are in a military regime or we are operating what they call diarchy, which is a combination of democracy, civilian democracy with military government, because we've allowed the military to come into governance in such a way that, you don't know much of the difference again. So these are issues that we have. And if we say we are going to be operating a democracy, then these are the issues that we have to look at very carefully.
All right, let's look at the spate of terrorism and insurgency in Nigeria. Like you said from your introduction, that what we have now is not compared to what we used to have, where these terrorists were emboldened to take over territories. But as an expert in this area, what do you think is playing out with the spate of terrorism or insurgency now? Would you say we are recording success, or the terrorists are being deterred from the Nigerian space?
Okay, I think what is happening is that the terrorists are getting tired. They are getting tired because, we've not made a very serious move in dealing with them to get them out of Nigeria. We still have terrorists. Some of them, they say they surrender. And when they surrender, they call it de-radicalization, but I don't think that was a very good policy, because we've seen situations where some of these de-radicalized, or should I say surrendered terrorists who we received with open arms have come back, go back to the areas where they've attacked before and attack them again. So you find out that the only good part of it that we have done is to remove all of them from the areas, that the territories like that they are trying to take over, because their original modus operandi was to capture areas and make caliphates out of it. They were trying to create caliphates, but I think that has been taken care of, whereby they don't have any foothold. But the point is that we still have ungoverned spaces, what we call ungoverned spaces. That is areas where, there is no presence of any law enforcement, and these people are there. And of course, when they cover up the ungoverned spaces, they create their own government, so to say, and then, bear farmers from going to farm. If you have to go to farm, you have to pay, to be allowed to go to farm. And these are areas that we should have the political will to deal with. We believe strongly in the security circles that there is complicity. There is complicity. There are politicians, who are involved, who are sympathizers, of these terrorists. And as long as we have the good leadership to sort them out, to recognize and expose them and shame them, then we will be making a headway. Otherwise, it's like we're going round and round in circles.
All right, you just talked about ungoverned spaces. Nigeria has recruited at least about 30,000 personnel for the Nigerian police force in the last 1 year. What more can be done to ensure that in those ungoverned spaces, there is presence, or at least presence of security forces in those areas to limit the happenings of the takeover of these places by bandits and other criminal elements?
Well, if you look at it, you've already suggested it, and that is what the agitation recently in the country has been, and that's the agitation for state police. because in principle, crime is being committed in a locality. So wherever this crime is being committed is a local government area. All these ungoverned spaces are in local government areas. And for us to occupy those ungoverned spaces, we need to increase our police numbers. The police was decimated. When we go back to history, the police was decimated because they were getting too strong for the military. You remember, Nigeria went through about 13 years of military rule. And it was during these 13 years of military rule that the police was decimated because, they tried to not weaken it. Because there was a time, I remember, when Inspector General of Police, Ayodele was the Inspector General of Police, the police was actually strong and they were ready to stand up to the military in case of anything. But the point is this: we are not making things very clear. The police is the lead agency in internal security. The military are trained to defend Nigeria, and their method is to kill, when defending the country, because that's how they are trained to kill. The police is not trained to kill. That's why when we have all these accidental discharges, we say, oh, what is going on here? The police is trained to serve and protect. That's why in so many countries, you see that it is the police force. South African police, in Nigeria, it is the police force, but in other countries, the police service. So we should have like Nigerian police service, instead of Nigerian police force. And the force issue came into play because we had this colonial mentality where when the police was created, it was actually created to, protect the colonialists. And they were using force against the natives. That's why they were calling us natives. And it's very funny that it has popped up again with our new old national anthem. So natives, police force, deal with the natives so that they don't come and disturb, the colonial masters. So we have to move away from that mentality that this is our country. We are protecting the citizens, not the colonialists against our own citizens. And that will be far-reaching because now you get all the situation of a VIP going through the town and with siren and, people will have to get out of the way. Why? In other countries, when the prime minister or even the president is moving, you really rarely observe that a VIP is moving because it's very discreet and it's even better that way, so that you don't draw attention to the VIP. But that's where we find ourselves. So these ungoverned spaces have to be governed and they have to be occupied by our police forces.
All right, let's quickly talk about intelligence gathering and the synergy that should exist between security agencies. You are a former director in the DSS. I would like you to enlighten us when it comes to intelligence gathering, which is the primary responsibility of the DSS. How forthcoming has the Nigerian been, or the DSS has been in this regard? Then where's the missing link with sharing or being proactive with this information ahead of this crime most of the time? Where's the missing link? And then talk about the synergy that should exist between the DSS and other security agencies.
Yes. The DSS, the major duty or the responsibility of the DSS is to produce intelligence. It's an intelligence agency, and they are also involved in internal security and then, of course, counterintelligence. Counterintelligence means there are other foreign countries that are operating in Nigeria, and these ones are also collecting intelligence. And as they are collecting intelligence, one of the duties of the SSS or the DSS, is to counter it. Counter it in such a way that some are listening devices, they counter it so that you don't listen to it, they cannot get to it and stuff like that. Now, when the DSS collects intelligence like that, they are very, 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 very protective of their intelligence. And they have consumers, because you don't collect intelligence and keep it. You collect intelligence and give it, disseminate it to the consumers. Now, these consumers are very few. Sometimes top government officials, the president, some ministers, and other security services like army, police, and stuff like that. But again, you find out that in Nigeria, sometimes when intelligence is being shared, some people that receive this intelligence don't know the value. So they keep it. Because intelligence sometimes is not actionable intelligence, is something that you have to work on. If you keep it, it's just there. So they don't share it, and most of the security agencies are not sharing intelligence among themselves. And when they do this, it's a failure. And that's why even in the United States, where you have 9/11, where they bombed the Twin Towers in New York, here in New York, it was because of a failure of intelligence, because intelligence was not shared.
Talking about sharing intelligence, even members of the public are encouraged to provide intelligence where necessary so that security forces, particularly the police, can effectively carry out their work. Now, what needs to be done to make this happen, willing sharing of intelligence with security forces? Is there a lack of trust, of confidentiality, that people tend to be afraid if they share intelligence reports with security forces, their identity might be revealed?
Okay, sharing is different from collecting. Collecting is basically what the DSS does. They collect, and there are many ways to collect information, which is processed, and then, of course, intelligence come out of it. That is there. But sharing of intelligence is the intelligence itself, which has been manufactured, or whatever you want to call it, with other people. And we have been propagating that, or advocating actually, that the National Security Advisor's Office, which of course they've started, should create a fusion center, and that fusion center will have all the different security agencies present. And when they are present there, they share. It's not, hold on, let me call Abuja, let me tell my Oga first, and before, the intelligence right there is shared because it's real-time intelligence. So this is headways that they've done, by creating a fusion center. And that fusion center, not only in Abuja, but it should also be in other states where, intelligence can be shared among, the security agencies.
All right. I wish you could have more time with us, but I learned you have another TV interview. We just have to let you go now. We must appreciate you for this patriotism, creating time for EarlyExchange to have this conversation. No doubt we'll still create another time to invite you and have this crucial conversation. We must say thank you so much, Dennis Amachree, the former DSS director. Thank you so much for your time and your commitment on EarlyExchange.
Thank you very much for having me.
EarlyExchange, shaping policy, advancing development.